Hey everybody, welcome back to Cityscape Brewing. I'm Dennis Fields. Today we're going to be going through how to properly dismantle and clean a keg, and also how to clean the lines that ran from this keg to your tap inside of your kegerator. How to properly clean and then also sanitize so it's ready for the next beer. So the day's come, there's no more beer left in this particular vessel, and so we're going to be taking it apart and showing you the step-by-step instructions on how to clean the small parts that are a part of the top of this, and then also then how to run these cleaners and sanitizers through the keg lines. So let's get to the nitty-gritty. If you have a ball lock keg like this one, you'll have a pressure relief valve. You'll want to pull this up and you'll release all the CO2 that's left inside of the keg. So they'll still be pressurized obviously from that. So we took this out, disconnected the two sides here, and we're going to just let out the CO2 and take off the top. And we'll pull off the lid. And then I have a bucket here just for these smaller pieces to go into that we'll use for cleaning and sanitizing. So you want to drop that in there. There's also the two ports, which is the gas and the in and out lines for the beer line and then your gas line. And you can usually tell the difference between the two because they have, one of them will usually either have an in or an out symbol on these, or sometimes the ports will look a little bit different. So in this case, this port for my gas line actually has a different look to the nut, and it's got a little bit some more of a star shape pattern. And then this is your normal hex pattern on this one here. They're both 7/8 size, so you're going to use your wrench here, and you can take both of these off the same exact way. They might be wrenched on there a little good way, so you might need to really wrench them off. There you go. You get them off the first time. There we go. And then you can just unscrew them by hand. And so in this case, each one of them have a couple of components to it. They'll both have a dip tube of some sort. This is the gas line. It's a smaller one. They have a little O-ring on the bottom here. And you can see that there. You'll want to inspect that, make sure that those are all good. And then inside of each of these, they have these little poppets. And they look like this here. These little springs and poppets. That's what actually allows the beer and the gas to flow through the middle of these. So don't lose these when you take them out. Put them right in your bucket. The beer line, or the outside, has a longer dip tube that goes to the bottom of the keg. And that one also gets taken out, but this also has a poppet, so we're going to want to make sure we get that out of there. Also, they have little O-rings on there. You want to make sure that those are all intact and sealed. And then this dip tube is longer. Some of them have a curve to them, some of them do not. This, when we're cleaning it, we're actually going to put this inside of the keg. For now, I haven't rinsed any of this stuff out, so I'm not going to put that in here, but for cleaning purposes, we'll put this right inside of here and let this soak along with the other, or along with the inside in the cleaner and the sanitizer once we get to that step. But for now, I'm just going to pull it off to the side. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this inside. I'm going to spray out the inside with my kitchen faucet sprayer and get all the leftover trube and the leftover beer, the small little bit amount that's on the bottom. All right, now that we got our keg disassembled, I've went inside, I've rinsed this thing out, and I actually filled it up with warm water, and what I use is the Oxiclean no dyes perfumes version. Other people may use PBW or some other cleaner that you get from a home supply store. Either way, that works just fine. They both work great. I also have the smaller parts that we took out, the poppets, the posts, and the lid soaking inside of here, along with the gas dip tube. And then the liquid dip tube I'm going to put right inside of here. One thing to keep in mind, so that should fit all the way down inside of the lid really. One thing to keep in mind is that you don't need to fill this thing all the way up. I filled it up with warm water and the Oxiclean solution, and that is working on the bottom half right now. And so I kind of feel on the side of the keg as you're filling it up, you can feel the warmth come through the edge of the wall. And so you fill it up just past halfway, and then you let that soak. And then once we get all of the parts back on the top and the lid, You can take your dip tube halfway through soaking, flip it the other way, that gets the other half, and then we'll put all the stuff back on the top, and you can actually take your keg, flip it back over, shake it up, and that'll make sure that the entire keg on the inside gets clean. So no reason to waste water and cleaner for that matter, and fill it all the way up to the top. Now you can do that, I'm just saying there's no need to do that. During this time, I also like to use this same bucket while these are soaking and clean the connections that are actually inside of my kegerator, both the gas and the liquid lines, and we'll show you how to do that next. All right, so here we are inside of the kegerator. I'm going to just take this bucket that we've already have with our solution in it, and I'm going to find the gas and liquid posts that we had. And this is before we clean the lines. And I'm going to take this and actually soak it in the bucket here. So these movable parts in here and the little ball bearing things that are in the inside get sticky from the beer that is connected for that long, a month or two inside, or a couple weeks even inside of your kegerator. And so I just dunk those right in there, let them soak, so it kind of helps eat off all of the beer and stickiness from the connections. And so I'll do that also for the gas line, just because sometimes that can also get a little bit gummed up just from the extra stuff that's in here, but this one shouldn't be quite as bad. But I'll go ahead and I'll take that and I'll actually let those soak in there for a little bit to loosen up, and then you can actually take these connections and once they're soaked in there and move them around a little bit, make sure all of these little ball bearing things move around and are unstuck, and this will help. Yeah, like this one's a lot more sticky, you can tell, than the other one. So let those soak for a few minutes along with those other parts inside of here, and then we'll put these pieces back together on top of the keg. At this time, I also like to take a rag, or in this case I'm just using a paper towel, dip that into your cleaning solution and get around the outside of these in and out, and then the top. As you're disconnecting and connecting your beer lines, you're gonna just get beer and grummy stuff on the top of here. So get outside of this rim real good. If you need to, wipe down the outside of the keg even. All right, so we have our small pieces. We're gonna get those put back on here, kind of in the same way that we put them on took them off the first time. And so go ahead and flip that one more time. I'm gonna go ahead and put the gas line on while that's soaking for the last time there. We're gonna find the poppets generally are the same, so you shouldn't have to worry. I like to kind of keep them in the same place, and so they're together, but that's not necessarily something that you have to do. I also take a small wire brush or a little brush and brush them out. There's also a little pipe cleaner that I used on this. I didn't show that on camera, but that's a good idea as well. And so we'll go ahead and put these things back together. So we got a little poppet that's going inside of our gas line. Remember, our gas line sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes has this different pattern on here. Sometimes they'll have a different color O-ring, which will help keep these apart, but you'll know which one that is. And then we want to put in our smaller dip tube again. In this case, there's a little bit of a ring on the outside of this gas one, so we kind of know that this one is the gas. But it also says in and out on either side of these, but sometimes it won't, so you'll have to keep track of what side is what, especially if you're using pin lock versus ball lock. Also, again, make sure that these O-rings here, both on the dip tubes and on the post itself, are in good condition. If you see any cracks or something, good time to replace those. They're pretty inexpensive at the home brew supply store. So we're gonna go ahead and get the gas line in there, and we're gonna go ahead and make sure this poppet is in the inside and flip that back up on the top. Make sure when you're screwing it in that the poppet actually fits inside of this hole to make a good seal. Right now we're just gonna hand tighten them down, and then we'll use the wrench here in a minute. So then we're gonna get our gas, or our exit line, or our beer line, back in the dip tube. In this case, there's a bend. You're gonna wanna make sure that goes towards the middle of the keg. There's usually a little depression at the bottom, but make sure that that's kind of centered on there. And it also has like a little fitting once it gets down in here that it really can't go the wrong way, but you'll help it kind of fit in place. We'll put that poppet back inside of this one as well. Check the O-rings on both of these. They both seem to be in pretty good shape. And then we'll go ahead and hand tighten this one down as well. Make sure again that the poppet gets inside of that little hole as you're screwing it back in. Make sure that that's on there correctly. And then we're going to go ahead and tighten these down. Now remember, you want to get these nice and snug, but you don't need to wrench them on. They're harder to get off when you do that, so they come snug, and then just give them a good tightening. Same with this one. We're going to get it kind of snug, and then we're going to just give it a little pull, and that should be sufficient. You don't want to over tighten those unless, and then it's going to be harder to get off if you do that. Then last but not least, we're going to actually put in our lid. And then remember, we still have cleaner in here. And so this will allow us to take our keg, pick it up, give it a good shake. And then also, you can actually see the line of where that was sitting on here from hot and cold. And then we're also going to allow us to tip this thing upside down and let it sit like this. Now it's going to get the other side of the keg clean on the inside, because it's been sitting here on the bottom and getting this all clean and soaking off. But now we're going to let the top sit for about 5-10 minutes or so, and then we're actually going to hook this keg up with the cleaner on it and run the cleaner through the lines. We're going to put a little bit of CO2 in there. We're going to let it do its thing and then let it sit in the lines for a little bit to clean the lines out as well. So we'll do that next. All right, we're back inside of the kegerator. Now we're going to hook up the keg to our gas line and our beer outline, and we're going to actually run some of this cleaner through the lines. It's going to help get out the old beer that's left inside of the line. And it's also going to help soak out and clean the line and the faucet to some extent from any of the old beer and grime. So let's go ahead and do that now. Go ahead, I'm going to hook up the gas line, or the beer line on our outside, and then our gas line on the gas or inside. We're going to turn on the gas to this, let this fill up. You can hear the gas filling up in there a little bit. No need to bleed it or anything. We just want the pressure to be able to push the beer through the line. And then what I'm going to do is take a glass and come out to our tap here in the front, and I'm actually going to run the cleaner through here until it starts really coming clear. I'm going to fill up probably this whole pint glass just to make sure everything gets run. And then I'm going to let that sit in the lines. So as you can tell, the old beer has now left the lines completely that it's through here, and now it's got the Oxiclean or PBW if you're using that inside of the lines. So I'm going to disconnect the gas line here, shut that off on the manifold, and I'm going to disconnect this. And I'm also going to let this sit in here for about 20 minutes. That'll help really get at cleaning all of the parts in here. And then we're going to, in the meantime, put sanitizer, kind of the same way we did our cleaning, but we don't necessarily need to remove all of the poppets and dip tubes and stuff for the sanitizer. All right, so we got our keg cleaned out. I did brush the inside of that when I was done doing the keg line, and then I rinsed it out real good with water, and now I filled it halfway, just like we did with the cleaner with the sanitizer. And so just using the Starsan, like you would sanitize everything else, I filled it up about halfway. I also have a small bucket again with the lid kind of soaked in there, make sure you get all the tops. I also open up the air release valve in here a few times, make sure that gets all sanitized. And then we're gonna go ahead and put this on. Sometimes, depending on the keg, you'll wanna make sure that that seal is real good. So inspect the seal, and then you might also need to use some keg lube, which is a sealant. If there's any bends or anything on the lip of this, where the keg lid goes on, it may have trouble sealing, and so when you go to pressurize it again, it may have a little bit of a seal issue. So I do this usually at the time that I actually keg my beer, and then when I'm filling it up, I'll make sure that this seats very well. If it doesn't, this keg lube, put a little bit on that larger O-ring around the lid. It should help seal that right up. So what we're gonna do now, take our lid, put it back on, all sanitized inside, outside. Also wipe the top real good with sanitizer like we did with the cleaner as well, along all the posts and things. And then I'm gonna do the same thing we did with the cleaner and hook it up to the kegerator with the gas and beverage lines, and then run sanitizer through the line as well. And then I'll actually let that sit inside of the lines and the keg until I'm ready to actually keg my next beer. And so it could be, you know, a few days or a week or two. Well, there's sanitizer just sitting in this keg, sealed and pressurized even, just to make sure that this thing stays clean and sanitized. Also, I'll let it sit in the line and let that be sanitized until I'm ready to go ahead and use it. That should not, though, take place of you cleaning your faucets, which I will do in a different video here, about how to break down each of the faucets and clean them individually, because although you're running the cleaner through there and the sanitizer through there, there's a lot of little parts inside of there that are susceptible to getting mold and other things in there if they don't get cleaned properly. All right, back inside of the kegerator, I'm gonna go ahead and hook up the beverage tube, beverage line, and the gas line. Gonna hit it with a little CO2, let that pressurize. And then again, also gonna run that line so we can make sure we get all of the sanitizer or the cleaner out of there and the sanitizer through the lines. And because this is cleaner in the lines, I'm actually gonna run this a couple different times. I'm gonna fill up 1 pint, and then I'm gonna go dump this out, and I'm gonna do a couple more through there. So it pumps a lot of the sanitizer through there that'll help flush out any of the leftover cleaner, so that's not sitting in the line. The only thing we have left in the line is Starsan. All right, that's gonna do it on how to properly clean and sanitize your keg in lines in a quick way. Again, like we did with our other cleaning solution, I'm gonna tip this upside down, I'm gonna shake it around and let the sanitizer really hit every portion of this keg. And then again, like I stated before, we're gonna let this sit with the sanitizer in there until we're ready to use this keg. So it'll keep it nice and clean and keep all the nasties out of it and sanitizer in there until we're ready to use it. Same with the beer line that I have cleaned out in there. I'm gonna make sure that that stays in the line until we're ready to put another beer on tap. And then once we pump the first couple of pints out of there and it removes a little bit of the sediment, that sanitizer will come out of the line along with it. And so we'll pitch a few of the first pints from that beer. But that's it in a nutshell. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with others that are looking to learn a little bit more about homebrewing. And we'll see you next time.